Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of the Great Movie Marathon live stream here at Teacup For One. We already have one person watching. You're my favorite. I love you. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees. And if this is your first time joining us for the Great Movie Marathon, just a little insight into what it is. Pretty well, one of my favorite rides of all time at Walt Disney World was the Great Movie Ride. It was in the big, beautiful Chinese theater in Disney's Hollywood Studios, where Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is now. If you're like under the age of 20 and don't know what the Great Movie Ride was, it was this amazing ride through attraction where you got like taken through all these amazing recreations of scenes from classic Hollywood movies. There were all these creepy, not so great animatronics that were really state of the art for the time that the ride was open back in the late 80s. And it was an amazing celebration of Hollywood and the movies. And so, as a tribute to my favorite ride ever, I decided that I want to watch my way through all of the Great Movie Ride movies in ride order. And some of my amazing fellow Disney YouTubers are coming along for the ride. So every week is a different movie. In the past 3 weeks, we've made our way through the musicals. So we did Footlight Parade, Singing in the Rain, and Mary Poppins. This week, we are moving into the crime dramas, the gangster films. It's really exciting. So I am happy to introduce our guests for this evening. First off, joining us again, we have our favorite Lauren from Castles, Capes, and Clones. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, how are you?
Oops, are you frozen or am I frozen?
I can you see me moving my hand?
Okay. Oh, I can hear you now. There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Oh, yes. If I end up freezing, but like you guys, the panelists are okay, just keep going. I'll come back eventually. Unlike the
Okay.
Great Ride, that's gone forever. So, Lauren, why don't you tell us, for anyone watching who hasn't been with us the last few live streams, a little bit about your channel, what you do, and then tell us about your video for today.
Yes, I have a channel where we discuss pretty much everything in the Disney universe. We'll do news and reviews, but my portion of the channel is particularly unboxings and hauls and things like that. And my video for today, I have been participating in the collaboration by doodling
Yeah, you
with to the movie, and just talking about the movie while I'm doodling, because I found that when I'm talking to people, I tend to doodle anyway. So I thought, well, let's just have a little conversation with myself,
I love it.
and yeah, and this was born.
Very nice. And what I just realized today, well, I guess I always sort of knew this, but what I appreciated watching today, I was like, this is just one solid take from what I can tell. You're just talking and doodling
Mm-hmm. Yep.
freehand. I'm not brave enough to do that. Like anytime I'm drawing or trying to draw, I need all the time in the world just to make sure that like I'm doing things properly, and I need to do a
Right.
bunch of different drafts to have like such beautiful sketches on one piece of paper at one try. Like that's amazing. Same with talking. Really, there are so many multiple cuts in my videos because it's just hard for me to talk in a coherent stream of thought. So to do that while drawing, amazing. Oh, we got a comment. I enjoy your doodling too.
Oh, thanks, Martha.
There we
That's so
go.
nice of you to say.
She's a nice person. I approve. I
Yeah.
approve, Martha. There we go. All right, and we're going to bring in our second guest panelist for this evening. We have our friends from Art Paradise Falls. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, guys.
Yay.
Welcome, welcome. So this is your first time on the channel. I'm really excited to have you guys. Thanks for
Thank
joining us. So same thing, why don't you tell us a little bit, actually, since this is your first time on one of the Great Movie live streams, tell us about your channel in general, the kind of stuff that you do, and then tell us about the video that you put out for the collaboration today.
Perfect. Yeah, we're a family vlogging channel. Obviously, we go up to Disney World a lot, so we'll vlog our trips up there with our son Connor. And we just don't do Disney as well. I mean, we have a local theme park or animal park by us called Lion Country Safari, so we'll go on little mini adventures like that, or maybe like the Miami Seaquarium. We're South Florida based, or what's the zoo? What's the
My
Frost
Museum.
Museum. So they have like petting zoo there and stuff like that. So it's pretty much just all of our family adventures, pretty much all over the state of Florida. And we do occasionally, we'll do like movie reviews or like
Character Warehouse.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of Disney Character Warehouse. We actually have one 45 minutes south of us, so we go there a lot.
Nice.
Nice.
And the video that we put out today, So come to find out that the Muggsy scene on the Great Movie Ride actually has nothing to do with the Public Enemy. We found that out from a cast member friend today.
We were very confused. We were like,
So we found an appreciation from the Great Movie Ride from our cast member friend Courtney. Like, she made such a special bond with us and our son that we became lifelong friends now because of it. But the video that we put out today is just some short clips of her interactions with our son from what, 4 years ago, even before we started vlogging.
Nice. Amazing. And that's a perfect transition. What I really like to open with when we have people on the channel that haven't done one of the live streams before is tell us about your history and your memories of the Great Movie Ride.
Well, I remember going to Disney as a kid, and I remember getting so scared on the alien part. My mom had to cover my eyes because, being, a 4 or 5 year old little kid at that time, I got so frightened on it. But I remember it that far back. But I think pretty much you want to explain with Courtney and...
So the first time that we rode it as a family, I hadn't been to Disney in 20 years. And Jeff's like, well, let's go with Connor. And he was 2.5. And Great Movie Ride was one of those rides that we could take him on because it was easy to get on.
And we always requested the front on every ride because we wanted Connor to experience, not having to look over people while viewing the ride. We wanted him to see everything firsthand.
So when we were going through the alien scene, Jeff warned me, he's like, go ahead and cover his eyes. I don't want him to get scared. So I went ahead and covered his eyes. And when we were past it, Courtney said to Connor, she's like, wow, you must be super brave. I need to hang out with you because you need to be my protector. And then it's all history from there because they just made a special bond. And when we had gone back multiple times, we'd always requested her and we just became super great friends. So I think that's where our memory started with that ride. And we still, we love Mickey's and Minnie, but
also she made Connor junior tour guide once. Yes. So that was special for us too.
That's a thing.
It was, yes.
Yep.
Was there a hat involved?
Like them and everything.
Yep.
I want to be a junior tour guide. That's adorable.
I know, right?
So you literally just made this connection with. Sorry, what was her name? It was
Courtney. Yeah,
Courtney just as a random cast member that you connected with, and that's amazing.
Yep.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Fun. So then, what was? Like you mentioned, that section of the ride pretty well has nothing to do with the Public Enemy. And yet at the same time, kind of everything to do with it. Like I mentioned in my video, that part of the ride is weird because it's not any one movie. It's just sort of a general vibe of a bunch of different movies all smushed together. Especially, like what always gets me is that line when the tour guide says, or Muggsy's like, how do you know my name? I've seen this movie before, but there's no movie. Muggsy's not from a movie.
So that's what we thought. That's when we were watching it. I'm like, but she says, how do you know my name? And I was like, I was really confused.
And I'm waiting for the Muggsy name to get brought up, and we're like watching it, and I'm like, oh, when is this going to happen? I honestly thought Tom's character was going to be Muggsy, and it just never happened. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not sure what's going on here.
Yeah, I think they were just really banking on nobody knowing those movies, and so they were just like, people will assume that Muggsy is a character. Like it sounds like Bugsy. So there you go. There it is. And more so, just the fact that the James Cagney animatronic is recreating a scene that doesn't exist is the other thing that's just so strange about it. So that said, what was everyone's first impression seeing the movie? Let's start with Lord.
It's one of those that is kind of a weird film. I also had this idea that there was a line in there that said, look, Mime, I'm top of the world. And they never say it. He says, the coppers. And you'll hear me say it at the beginning of my video because I thought that it was in the movie, but it was not. Anyway, where am I going with this? What was the question again?
Just your impression seeing the movie.
Oh, yes.
Was it your first time seeing the movie? I should have asked that first.
No, I had seen it before, but I just couldn't remember it very well. And even the ending, I was like, what? So I thought it was very surreal. It was interesting seeing, this is the early talkies, basically. And their makeup and the way the lighting is and everything like that seems uh, very old school. And
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. But overall, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it like just the interesting thing to me is just how old of a movie it is and
Mhm.
how like it has a ton of shortcomings. Like I think the pacing is really weird. Like just there's no continuity for me scene to scene. It just goes from like it's 1909, now it's 1920, and the only thing that's really connecting it is Tom Powers and his sort of story, but
Yeah.
just kind of like a collection of events in his life. But I
Yep.
think the fact that it's for the most part still watchable is a testament to how well made it actually is in consideration for the time. Even though, like now, if it was made now and we had that exact movie that came out now, it would be probably panned because like there's nothing super special about it. I
Mhm.
think as like a movie in general, but for the time it was made, I think there's a lot that's special about it. But we'll get there. Paradise
Yeah.
Falls. What were your thoughts watching this movie? It was your first time seeing it as well, right?
Yes, it was our first time seeing it, and I'm not a big black and white movie fan, so
Okay.
that was one of the
Oh.
things that I was kind of like I was thrown off by, and I was a little bored. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bored.
Yeah, it's one of those, definitely.
Yes, but it kind of with the cars and the people and the dress, like how they're dressed and everything. I mean, obviously we're young, so we haven't been able to experience any of that. So it was definitely interesting to watch the older cars and everything like that.
I do like period piece movies, so I appreciate watching that from a point of view of how movie, obviously production and things like that was made back then, and like the costume designs and like kind of like the timing or like the history of it. So I respect it for that. As far as a movie overall, I'm honestly shocked how like edgy it is
Yeah.
for a movie made back when it was made, obviously. And if like a little kid was like, "Hey, I want to riding the great movie ride. Hey, I want to watch The Public Enemy," and they're watching it and they're like there's a couple scenes where I turn to Britt and I'm like, "Whoa, that was like really edgy for the kind of movie it is." So you know that I guess a little bit of shock value, but yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, we got some friends. It's Disney
Oh.
Insight Andy. Hello, Karen and
Oh, hi,
Andy. Thanks for
Karen
joining us.
Andy.
Yeah,
Hey,
welcome to the talk about The Public Enemy. I'd like to bill it as a movie not a lot of people have seen, and you're not necessarily missing much, but it's also not like a waste of time to watch it. Just like, just don't put it at the front of the Netflix queue. That's how I would review it. But yeah, just in terms of like how edgy it actually is, I think, because my whole video was about why this movie was allowed to be made, because it was before they like really buckled down on way too strict censorship rules because of the code. And the code. Had anyone heard of the code? Does anyone know what the code is?
is that before I think Raiders was made, where it was like it was G, PG, and then R? There was no like PG-13
Oh,
or
it was before that. It's the
oh, it was
thing that
before
was,
that. Okay.
yeah. So basically, like this movie was made during a period that we know now is pre-code filmmaking. So that was from like 1930 to 1934. Because in
Mhm.
1934, there was a really stringent set of rules that were put in place by um, his name was Father A. Lord, so he was a priest, but I can't remember the other guy's name. It was Martin something, Martin Quigley. And so they were worried that since film was so new, they were scared that it was going to corrupt everybody and like make the children not innocent and like scare the women and everything. And so they set out all these very strict rules saying these are the ways that movies have to be. So they can't portray characters that are immoral as being sympathetic. They can't like it was bigger things like that so that people wouldn't be tempted to turn to evil, but then it like filtered down to kind of very close-minded, actually I'll just say it, very racist things. So
Yeah.
there was this whole issue about how like you couldn't have mixed race marriages presented on screen. That was a big thing. You couldn't
Mhm.
show bedrooms on screen. Probably couldn't show bathrooms. That was a big part of it. So yeah, the code pretty well made sure that movies like Public Enemy couldn't be made again for a
Yeah.
very long time. And even gangster style movies that were made after that period, I didn't watch any, but I read the synopsises of a couple of them. And it's so evident how the code influenced them. Because in this movie, Tom Powers is like a fairly likable character, I think, as like corrupted as he is. Like I wouldn't condone any of his actions, but when you look at his character in this movie compared to the characters that James Cagney played after the code was put into place, like it's completely a 360, because his character in, I can't remember what movie it is, but he's a similar type where he's caught up in crime and then his best friend becomes a minister and then he's trying to bring him back. But then at the end, James Cagney is killed and the ending is all about how he's shamed for dying like as a coward. I'm like, this is so clearly like you're just influencing everything right now. So like what I love about this movie in theory is that since it is pre-code, we get a sense of what people were like free of censorship at that time. And then seeing just how edgy it actually is, like that's what the market was demanding. Like people still wanted to see that even back then. And I think the ending is like so disturbing in the best way possible. Like that was something that for me still holds up as being effective and powerful now, like almost 100-ish years later. Like he's just there and then he falls.
Yeah. I can't believe that I didn't remember that ending, because it was pretty powerful of an ending.
Oh yeah, it was so intense. It was great. Yeah, and then just like all the amount of gunfire and the amount of murders, and let's talk about the fact that they revenge killed a horse. That to me was just completely random, and I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. What did everyone think about the horse?
I felt bad for the horse.
I know.
I honestly thought they were just going to like maybe buy the horse and just to like keep him around as just like this is because the horse killed their crime boss, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, maybe they're just going to keep him around. They literally just paid $1,000 to go in there and shoot the horse. I'm like, craziness. I'm surprised like PETA wasn't all over this film.
And that to me just felt like such the quintessential gangster movie cliche. Almost, it was just so short and efficient. Just like, which horse was it? Then he was like, this one. How much is the horse worth? $1,000. Okay. It's like, do you want the saddle? Bang. Done.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, I think it's like little things like that are just so indicative of what we think of when we think of this genre, which is just really, really interesting. Were there any other moments that kind of shocked you or kind of made you go, well, that's weird?
Yep.
I would say the womanizing stuff, I guess. I would say maybe about Tom having, because it was his wife, or was it his girlfriend? The girl.
I think they were all girlfriends. I don't think he was married.
Girlfriends. And then finding the random girl on the street and pretty much, riding with her. And like back then, I mean, that was pretty much unspoken of or unheard of. I mean, obviously there was families and you had one wife and that was it. But like to see that portrayed in that time period of some pretty much a guy being womanizer, I thought that was pretty shocking.
Yeah.
It's another instance of the code influencing everything. Yeah, once the code came into place, one of the big things was relationships and marriages, especially. So I think you were only allowed to portray relationships as being married. And if not, like that's basically what created Casablanca. The whole love triangle was influenced by the fact that Elsa, is that her name? No, that's the Ice Queen. Anyway, Humphrey Bogart's sort of girlfriend, she couldn't be allowed to be implied as having like had a relationship with him when she was married. And so they had to change the movie, but then it made it better. But yeah, I think so much of our impression of what that time period was like has been influenced by the code. So yeah, it's so interesting to me seeing things like the womanizing and thinking, oh, did that actually exist in this time period? And we just like don't see it much. Sorry, Lloyd. Right. Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought that the most shocking scene was the kind of rape scene.
Yes.
I totally have never seen that in a black and white film because of the code.
I was shocked.
I was really shocked. I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
You're talking about the older woman towards the end of the film, right? Where they're hiding out in that house.
Yeah, and she kind of took advantage of him while he was drunk. So I thought that was really shocking.
That was one of those moments when that happened, and when she just said like, "Thanks for last night." He was like, "Wait, what?" I had to rewatch it 2 or 3 times to make sure I was understanding what was happening. And again, pre-code, that's like one of those really really out there things that even now, especially now, would be quite the shocker.
So after the code was put in place, did they have any restrictions then on this film, or?
It was re-released. My understanding is that it was re-released in the 50s, and they had to take out a couple scenes. Like, weirdly enough, the ones that seemed more innocent than some of the others. Like, they took out the scene where Matt is being served breakfast in bed by his girlfriend, I think, just because her presence in his house in the morning meant that they spent the night together. So that was a no. Even though they were both like fully clothed, and she literally just said, "Look, I brought you breakfast." Seems innocent, but no. Bedroom, morning, no good by the code. The scene with the tailor, because he was like super effeminate, that was taken out because that was considered sexual perversion, just acknowledging homosexuality. So that was cut. The scene with one of the murders might have been cut, but I also think the opening title card and the closing title card saying this is a cautionary tale, I think that might have been instated post-code as well. Just to be like, we can still release this movie because we made a great movie, but like according to the code, oh, sorry, I was reading the comments. Disney. Yep, I'll recap the code in just a second, friends. But yeah, so I think they put that section, like the title card at the beginning, just to justify why they could release the movie, to make it more of a, this isn't for entertainment, this is to warn you about the path you could go down, because you too could end up wrapped up in a burlap sack at the end, falling face first onto your mother's doorstep. Yes. But yeah, so Disney Inside Andy. So quick explanation of the code. I won't talk about it too long because it's what most of my video is about, and I still want people to watch that. But basically, the code was written in 1929 by Father A. Lord and Martin Quigley because film was super new and they didn't want movies to corrupt people, because actually right? And so the first part of the code is really fascinating because it has some very good insights into film as an art form, saying this is a much more powerful art form than, say, music or theater, because this is something that's a lot more visual and intimate. And I'm like, yes, you're explaining film very beautifully right now. I respect that, except for the fact that you're about to use it for evil, debatably. So they go on to talk about how, like, they set out 3 or 4 pages of very strict rules about what studios should and shouldn't be allowed to put on screen. And it had to do with things about basically promoting extreme morality. So even if you were to portray immoral characters for the purposes of plot, they always had to be punished at the end. All the good characters had to be rewarded at the end. You couldn't have any characters that fell into a moral gray zone, because that would be pushing people towards like a bad lifestyle, is the code. And that's why so many movies from like the 30s through to the late 60s, early 70s are basically all rated G and PG. Oh, and then to bring it back to what you mentioned about Raiders, Jeff, that was sort of a after the fact, because the code ended up being abolished for reasons I didn't research because they were too extensive for my brain. But the code went away, and then they decided we should still have a rating system. And then that's how we got like G, PG, R, and then Raiders is when PG-13 happened, because there was no in between ground.
Good job.
I'm pretty sure it was Raiders, that the first one, because I remember Lucas and Spielberg saying they didn't want it PG, but then also they didn't want it R either, because they didn't feel it was too like violent enough to make it like a R rating. So they wanted to do that, like, I guess, crossbreed between the two.
Definitely. No, and I think the rating system is great. I think maybe one of the good things about the code is that it led to that eventually, because you definitely need to have some regulations for what you're putting on screen and being sure you're regulating who's being exposed to what kind of entertainment, so you can have those choices. I just think the initial code was just a little too much too soon. It's like, let us see people being people.
Our rating system, though, I mean, there's movies nowadays where we'll watch a PG-13 movie and I'm like, this could be R, and like vice versa. It's crazy how much like certain films of what they can get away with.
Oh, definitely. And I know it's different here in Canada, the rating system, from down in the States. But when I was in my first year at film school, we got to do a field trip to the ratings place, like where they got to review all the movies and then rate it, which was really cool, except I had to watch a really boring movie called Monkey Warfare. It was not great. But anyway, we got to watch that, and then they took us through the whole process. They like showed us the guidelines for what justifies what rating, and then just what really was eye-opening to me was how liberal PG ratings actually are, and that people don't necessarily realize that PG actually means there should be parental guidance. Because like here in Canada, in a PG movie, you can have the F word said up to 3 times and then still get the PG rating. And then once you hit 4, it hits PG-13.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very
Wow.
cool.
Fun facts.
I know, but I mean, it makes sense. Like that's why G is completely safe. Like D-rated movies, anyone can watch them. But then when you get to PG, I think that's when they want people to start making more informed decisions, which makes sense. Like as long as there's no code, I'm happy.
Yeah. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense why we're not allowed to show PG movies at school.
Oh, are you not?
No. Well, I'm a preschool teacher, so it's kind of different. But
Right.
yeah, no, we're strictly, and we're a Christian preschool, so it's a different level.
Fair
But
enough.
yes,
fair
we
enough.
are definitely no PG.
No, and I think that makes sense. Like I said, I think the rating systems are really good, and they're in place in a way that you can just put your trust in knowing that a G-rated movie is going to be appropriate for pretty well anybody and everybody, which is nice.
So in our current rating system, what would they give that the 1931 Public Enemy? You think it would be a PG-13 or a PG?
I feel like right now, I think the fact that it's older would give it a little bit of leeway, but if it was to be made today as like the exact same movie, minus the fact that it would be panned by the critics because of all the pacing issues and the not great performances, I think the actual rating would end up being, in Canada, probably PG, and in the States, PG-13 would be my guess. Because you don't see a lot of violence. It's just all implied violence. And I think that's a big deciding factor, if I'm remembering the rating system correctly, between what merits like a PG-13 rating and higher. So the fact that like you don't see blood, but you know a ton of people are being slaughtered by James Cagney in that hotel or conference center at the end, like probably PG-13 would be my guess.
Right.
But even so, when you do see them, I mean, shooting out of the window at the two of them when they're walking, I mean, the one guy gets shot, but there's no blood. So
there's some blood out of his mouth.
A little,
Yeah.
I mean,
When they do
a
that
small
other cut,
amount,
yeah.
right, a small amount of it. But you know that, I mean, nowadays, if we were watching, per se, Deadpool, I mean, hello.
I think Deadpool and this movie are far
I'm
stretched.
just saying, because that was the other movie we had watched.
Yeah. It's so funny thinking about the stuff that we're just also like, I don't want to say desensitized because that's not the right word, but so accustomed to now seeing, because just watching Public Enemy felt on par with, even though it was shocking for the time, and in some cases shocking just by normal standards, it wasn't too different from like watching HBO or even Netflix series. And it just goes to show how much our tastes, I think, have changed, or who knows? Who knows? People seem to be less scandalized now. Is that for the better, for the worse?
Well, it's even like the horror genre. Like when we go to 50's Diner or the Sci-Fi Diner at Hollywood, and Attack of the 50-Foot Woman and the giant spiders, and that's what people used to be scared of back then. And nowadays we have like Paranormal Activity. It's just crazy the leaps and bounds that we've, I guess, grown as like human race of what you said, what we're desensitized to.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then it's just funny looking at really old horror movies. And again, the things that used to scare people versus the type of horror that we have now, especially Universal monster movies. That's what my brain always goes to. Like when you think of Frankenstein, which I personally don't think is a very well-made movie, which is my biggest hot take probably of this entire live stream today. Like I think Frankenstein is relevant because of the doors that it opened and because of the makeup, but I don't think it's a super scary movie, but people did, I think, more because of the ideas. And again, because no one really knew what film was. So I think seeing things in that way affected people differently.
I don't know. I went to Horror Nights one year, and I'm like, you know what? Let me start with the minor house, or not the scary house. I went with the classic, like, monster villains like Frankenstein and Werewolf and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this ain't going to be scary. And I didn't go in any of the other houses.
I'm too scared for that. I can't do Horror Nights.
I think back in the day, the special effects and things like that were, I mean, to our standards of, Endgame or whatever. And so I think that they were ultimately more scary during that time. So.
Definitely. Because, yeah, people weren't used to seeing certain things on screen as well. So I think even just the idea of seeing a monster or seeing monster makeup presented on screen was like it affected people so differently. Especially,
Yeah.
yes, like visual. I think the visual component is the big thing that people were trying to adjust to with film, since it was like, again, such a new medium. And this is something that the code points out, is that the thing that film gave us that no other art form had was like this immediate intimacy between the people watching and the screen, that even comparative to theater, like there's that separation and that distance. So it's easier to separate yourself from what's real and what's not. But movies, it's like, it's there, it's all real.
I'm still one of those firm believers. Like I don't remember the animator's name, but the original lead animator who worked on Jurassic Park. Like some of the raptors in those scenes were real. Like it was a real puppet or it was a real animatronic or whatever the case is. I much prefer having the real thing where you can actually go and I can touch it, or like the original The Thing where they actually made some of those props and some of those effects. Nowadays with movies, it's all just on a computer. So it just takes that like that realistic like approach out of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's the same with Star Wars. That having that practical effect makes it look so much more real.
No, definitely. I think going back to the word desensitization, we're so used to seeing so much stuff now, especially so much computer generated stuff, that it lowers how things affect us just watching them. I feel like that's a way that we've definitely progressed since then. And that was something that stood out to me when we were rewatching Mary Poppins last week, and just paying attention to the special effects in that, because like I like to think of it as the Jurassic Park effect, as you just described. Like when you just have a bunch of different combos of practical effects, visual effects, then like you buy into it completely. But then when you know what's going on, then no more.
That movie was like a first of its kind with the practical, blaring the practical and the CGI like animation together.
Definitely. Yeah. And what was I going to say? Oh, this is going way back. I want to talk about the moment that shocked me. It was the grapefruit scene. What was everyone's reaction to that random grapefruit assault?
I thought it was really interesting. I mean, I knew a little bit of the history behind that, and that May Clark apparently had no idea that he was going to shove a grapefruit in her face.
It was so unnecessary and so violent.
Yeah. I guess the director told her.
In the face with the fruit.
I told James Cagney to hit her in the face with it, and she looked really. You could see she looked really upset, and I feel bad for her. But yeah, totally unnecessary.
Yes. What did you think, friends?
I think we said a few inappropriate words for the live stream.
Yes, fair enough.
But we were kind of like, was that necessary? Like what Lauren said, that was unnecessary. Like that was a different level of unnecessary.
And it just sort of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was such an unprovoked attack on his part.
I wouldn't say unprovoked, because she did make a snarky comment to him.
That's true, but people make snarky comments to me all the time.
But did she deserve a grapefruit in her face? Probably not.
I wonder how many takes they did of that scene, if they just used like that one first take of it.
I think they used
one of
just
those cases.
One take.
Yeah, it was like that was the one take when he just shoved the grapefruit in her face.
That's it. When I get mad at you, you're getting a grapefruit in your face.
And the other takes, I think he just like stormed off, but they were like, okay, it's the last one. You know what would be funny? Shove a grapefruit in your face. Go. And then the rest of their lives.
How do you stay serious while doing a grapefruit in your face? Like,
I felt awful because it was funny but terrible at the same time. And
yes.
Nowadays, I would feel so bad for that actress. Be like, all right, we have to take a couple takes of you getting a grapefruit in your face. I had a grapefruit in my face 10 times. Yeah.
I like all I can think. Just imagine the citrus and the sting in the eyes. No good. No good at all. So then, what do you think was? No, I guess we kind of talked about most shocking. What was the like? If you were to fix one thing about this movie or change one thing, what would it be?
I think the pace for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Speed it up a little bit. It didn't. like when Jeff edits the videos and makes the cuts in between and everything, like it's different, but it felt like it took so long to transition to another scene. Like it was just.
There was a lot of scenes that kind of overextended. Like there was a lot of dialogue where the scene was a little overextended for me, and I'm like, all right, just get to the point already. Just like let's get to the where is this all leading to? But yeah, definitely pacing. Yeah,
I agree. That's why in my doodling, I said they spent a lot of time sitting in trucks. that was it. They did, and it was just laborsome.
Laborsome, yes. I think watching it in some ways was laborsome. But then there were also parts, like, I think the core elements of the story and the movie are good. Like, I kept watching it because I had to for this project, but I probably would have kept watching it if I had no, 12-week project to fulfill guidelines for. But what I found really special about it was, it had a really interesting story. I think Tom Powers is a really fascinating character, and he's worth watching because of James Cagney. I think if the rest of the cast was as engaging as James Cagney and less generic, because all of them just sort of felt like generic 1930s actors that didn't really stand out to me. I think Matt is such an interesting character, but that actor just didn't do much for me. He was just kind of there. And I think if we really dug into that relationship up against his relationship with his brother, actually, no, I liked his brother, that actor. That guy was good.
Yeah.
But there were so many things about the story that when I realized what was happening, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Why don't you elaborate on it? Like the gang war that ends the entire movie when they're like, this guy's dead, therefore this gang is taking over. You're just casually mentioning this, but if you built more of the movie around that, I'd be a lot more interested. Tell me about the gang war. Bring me Muggsy.
Honestly, I saw a lot of... this movie's obviously no Goodfellas, but when I was watching it, Tom's character and Henry Hill and Goodfellas, I saw a lot of similarities between the both of them. Both coming from abusive families, kind of being the runt of the family, going out and working for a crime organization at a very young age. They both did it. Obviously, they were doing it when they were kids. Henry Hill started when he was a kid as well. Obviously, their rise in the crime organization of starting as a low-level guy to a top guy. Obviously, they're both their ways of the way they handle women in their life. So very similar characters, I thought of.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, especially in the first opening scene, just the flashback with him as kids. Somehow that just rung so reminiscent to me of what I remember about Goodfellas. I've only seen it once or twice, but I remember the opening. We were just talking about growing up, glorifying gangsters in his mind and glorifying that lifestyle. And that's pretty well exactly what the opening of this movie is. I almost feel like Goodfellas is the improved version of the Public Enemy, minus the prohibition and bootlegging and the grapefruit.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So then that opens me up to another question I wanted to ask. What is your favorite movie in this genre of crime films, of gangster movies, mob, etc., etc.?
For us, well, for me, it's always between The Departed and Goodfellas. Some days I'm Goodfellas, some days I'm The Departed. I would probably lean more towards The Departed just because my wife and we got to go up to Boston a couple of years ago for our wedding anniversary. So we got to actually walk those streets and those areas and actually experience that atmosphere. And also Dropkick Murphys has the theme song in the movie, so that also helps too. But I would say The Departed.
Nice.
I would agree. The Departed is definitely one of my favorites.
But over Goodfellas?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I've actually yet to see The Departed, so I feel like this might be the vote of confidence I need.
He actually just showed it to me before we went to Boston.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Fun. Lauren, how about you?
I still am a big James Cagney fan, and I just remembered the film that had the line, "Look, mime on top of the world." It was White Heat, which was in the Madonna song. Yeah, it's actually, that's a much better movie than Public Enemy.
Fun. Do you know, is it pre-code or post-code? Do you know?
Postcode.
Postcode? Interesting. Yeah, you want to watch that now. I'm just James Cagney was also in, what was the first movie that wasn't great that started the great movie ride? with all the swimming. Yes.
Light Parade.
Footlight Parade. Yes, he was also in that, which is it's so fascinating seeing James Cagney as like a tap dancer.
Yeah.
And then seeing him in this, like that guy was so talented, it's ridiculous. I kind of just want to go and see all of the James Cagney movies now. Oh, we got some more votes here. One vote from Martha for The Godfather Part 1 classic.
That's
I mean, Hyde I really want to see too.
I've never seen any of the Godfather movies.
Really?
Nope.
Oh, they're so good.
Oh, what about
Scarface?
Scarface.
We also I like Scarface too, especially living in South Florida since it's based in Miami. You know, it's kind of like, oh, hey, I've been there before. I've been on South Beach before.
Fun. Yeah, Scarface is one I have not seen, and I didn't realize till this video that it was a remake of another like pre-code movie.
Yes.
Which so now the way my brain is, I want to watch the original, then watch the Al Pacino one, and then just see how they, compare to each other. How graphic is it? Like, what is this? A PG-13?
R.
Oh, R. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
bathtub scene.
Bathtub scene with a chainsaw. We won't say more, but yeah.
It's graphic.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I might go back. I'll watch the original. I'll settle for the 30s when they couldn't show the stuff I don't want to see.
So like you'll watch the original and then you'll watch the remake and be like, oh, like again, like how we have evolved, I guess, like as people, and being like, man, we really are into some messed up stuff.
Yep, definitely. And it just makes me wonder again, going back to censorship, were people just always this into this stuff and now we're just like allowed to embrace it? Who knows? Yeah, I think for me, even though I've only seen it once, I remember Godfather 2 being really beautifully made, just in terms of the structure, because it goes back and forth. So it's like sequel and a prequel all at the same time. And I just remember watching it thinking this movie is so beautifully made. Same with The Godfather. It's a really slow movie and it's really boring, but at the same time, it's so engaging that I couldn't stop watching it, even though I was constantly thinking, I'm kind of bored, but I want to keep watching. And I think that's just the ultimate sign of such a good movie, because I have a very low attention span with things that don't engage me. That The Godfather didn't engage me, but apparently it did on like some super deep level. But then my next question, why do we think this genre engages people? Why do people like watching movies about crime and crime families specifically? Like, what is it for all of us, these movies that we've mentioned as favorites?
I would honestly say the lifestyle. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, Tom says in the movie, he's going to school to learn how to be poor, about his brother. The lifestyle of having expensive cars, girls, money, lots of money. Same thing, Goodfellas,
Same thing in Scarface.
Same thing as Scarface. Money, women, girls, just having that lifestyle that, you would fantasize about living.
Yeah. It's like it takes you away on some levels. It's just kind of like pure fantasy, but in your mind, that you kind of want to know who these people are. Like The Sopranos. The Sopranos is a good example of that, where it was I think it really caught on because you got to see their lifestyle as gangsters, but at the same time as humans.
Nicely said. Definitely. And I think that's the thing that engages me a lot with these movies, is seeing the characters and the character portrayals. Like, how did these people get involved into this lifestyle? Did they choose it the way I think? What's his name again in Goodfellas? Henry Hill?
Henry Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Henry.
Yeah.
Sounds to me, is that the same name as the guy in The Music Man? It's not important. It'd be really entertaining if it was, though. Music Man, Goodfellas mashup. That's the musical I need. But yeah, like seeing characters who like choose that lifestyle very specifically and idolize it, like in Goodfellas, or up against characters like in The Godfather. Is it Michael? Is that the main guy's name? Is it Michael Corleone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like Michael, who just like falls into it unwillingly, but then becomes like obsessed with it and then becomes just as violent as the family. It just, dramatically, it's fascinating. It's so good.
It could probably be two characteristics. Obviously, maybe it's family. You're born into it. So it's almost like you have that responsibility or that role you need to play as far as like, if, let's say your family has a big crime, syndicate, or it's just the way it's portrayed in Goodfellas is he kind of watches them from afar. Henry's in a family of I guess 5 or 6, they're poor. His dad works in a factory. He doesn't want to do that. Like he wants to be able to go and make money and, pretty much buy and afford the things that he wants in life. So I think it could be either characteristic, either born into it or you want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And yeah, Goodfellas, I think Goodfellas does such a good job at portraying why he wanted in on that lifestyle. Again, I haven't seen it often, but there are just very specific things I remember. And one is that really beautiful, one take shot where he's with his date, I think, and he takes her through the kitchen and everything just to take her into is it a VIP table or something super exclusive. And I think that shot is just so brilliant because it's just showing us the lifestyle that he's always wanted and built up and actually achieved for himself, because he just has that power now to just walk straight in, to go through the kitchen and have his special treatment to impress this person.
Yeah.
I think that's the allure. And I also
love
think
that scene too, because he's she's like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm in construction. I'm a union delegate. She's like, doesn't seem like you're in construction.
I need to rewatch Goodfellas after this. So good. It also reminds me of Jersey Boys, which I know is a musical. It's also a movie, not a great movie, but I worked at the Toronto production of Jersey Boys for about a year, and just seeing it almost every night, it has such a similar vibe to all of these movies, because I think it comes down to another thing you said, which is family. I think so much of it has to do with just this theme that I think everybody can relate to on some level, the idea of loyalty within a tight-knit group, whether it's your literal family or chosen family, and then just seeing what happens to those relationships. Because if there's a betrayal, then it's that much more satisfying to watch because you were a family.
So my dad actually we used to live in New York. That's where I'm originally from. So I used to drive freight for JFK. So back in the 80s and 90s, he actually knew a lot of these guys that were stealing freight out of the airports and stuff.
That's so cool.
A couple of years ago, I don't remember his name or what his deal was or whatever, but I guess he owed somebody a favor. So there was somebody that was living with us in our house for a couple months. I guess he was hiding out because he needed to. So yeah, but it had ties from that kind of lifestyle. So we didn't ask questions. We weren't allowed to, but yeah.
Wow. Even now I'm so engaged and excited by this story, which just goes to show that this is such a universal appeal. I think people are just so interested in these more or less forbidden things. It's fascinating. I love it.
Yeah.
Fun. Hold on. Let me double check my list. Okay, so we kind of answered this, but no, we didn't really. So out of all these crime movies that we've mentioned, which one would you like to be a part of? If you were to be a character in any one of these films, which one would you pick? Which crime family would you want to join? For me, I'm picking the Jersey Boys because they were just kind of on the outskirts, but they also got to sing a lot, which was fun. And then, performing Walk Like a Man, and then getting to go be an underground gambler or something. That's the lifestyle. I know it doesn't really count, but my pick is Jersey Boys or Goodfellas.
Yeah, that would be fine too. Anything with singing.
Were all these movies were filmed? So obviously, for between The Departed, Goodfellas, and Scarface, being Boston, New York, or Miami, I'm picking Miami.
Good call. Mm-hmm. Warm weather.
I'm gonna pick Boston. I'm gonna go to Cardis.
In the cold? Good luck with the snow.
I think just because it isn't just about yes, it's about a crime boss and everything, but it has more to do with the police too. I mean, they were a part of the police station and, being a cop, and it wasn't just all dirty,
it was because the one.
Yes,
we can't give away. He hasn't seen it.
He hasn't seen it, but there was
more. I'll cover my ears.
Crime boss.
Oh, no,
there was
I'm just
more than just the crime boss.
Okay.
There was more than just the crime boss in The Departed, so.
Oh, interesting.
You just like Boston accents.
I do.
That's why you want to go up there.
Boston accents are a ton of fun. I respect
Boston.
that. So, like, a big thing with the code was that they didn't want movies evoking sympathy for criminals. And I think we've just proven that all of these movies have evoked sympathy for criminals. So,
Right.
what do we think it is about these characters that we empathize with or sympathize with? Like, clearly, we wouldn't love these movies so much if the characters were all so unlikable that we just couldn't watch them.
I think for me, it's that they're just so completely different from who I am that there's this kind of what am I trying to say? Like guilty pleasure, or I can't think of the exact phrase I'm trying to say, but there's just something that I enjoy seeing in them, just because I'd never do those things.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree on that. Again, it's kind of like living in that like fantasy world. I would never commit a crime. I would never do these heinous acts that these characters are doing and portraying in these movies. Like I could never envision myself doing that. But yet, it's fun to see somebody else doing it.
Yes, definitely. So living vicariously.
It's fun to watch somebody else murder somebody. I mean, why not?
But it's just a movie.
Yeah, and I think James Cagney's character is just such a perfect example of someone who's doing all the things that you would never do, but you love watching them do it. Like my favorite scene is when he robs the gun store with the gun.
Yes.
And it's just playing so naive.
I was watching. I'm like, what is this guy thinking? What is this clerk thinking? Like, oh yeah, I'll just load the bullets for you. Sure, no problem.
It's so fun. And they're in gangland.
Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Right?
Come on. And another thing that I really loved about this movie, with this whole question of like moral goodness, is that part when Tom just like puts his brother on the spot and says, "Why are you coming at me for killing people? Because you killed people in war, and you liked it. How is it different?" I think that was such a fascinating idea that, again, I wish the movie elaborated more on, because this movie had so many nuggets of great things that were just like there, and then you had to wait a long time for something else worthwhile to come along. But like when the good parts were there, they were super good. And I thought that was such a fascinating question to bring up in general, especially at this time period, because this was what, the 30s. This was like fresh off of World War One, I feel. So like those probably would have been conversations that people were having and we're about to have again, because I think World War II was like 38, a couple years after that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so just questioning things that probably weren't even spoken about at large. Like this movie, yeah, so shocking.
That is actually a good question, though. So, you know, obviously a gangster is going and kill somebody for money, but what gives a soldier a right to go and kill somebody for land or for country? Or, you know, is it morally right if a soldier goes into war to shoot somebody, or if somebody just shoots someone on the street? You know, where's the right and wrong between the two? It's both killing.
Oh, definitely. And see, that's another thing this movie should have examined, was the parallels between like gang warfare versus like international war. Just the fact that you have these two brothers and one is caught up in like one type of war lifestyle and the other is caught up in another kind of war lifestyle. Like, where's the line? What makes one acceptable and one unacceptable?
But also how the mother portrays them too. I mean, the mom obviously has her favorites, and, you know, Tom is the baby, so of course she loves the baby, but then she, like, almost idolizes the older one because he's gone to war and he's, you know, come back a hero and everything else. So it's interesting to see that as well.
Oh, yeah, the mom was such an interesting character because she was just so desperate for her family to stay together.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Kind of annoying in certain parts, but also kind of heartbreaking in others. And I was just like, oh, my Irish mom, stop crying. You know they're not going to be friends.
Yeah.
Well, the mom in Scarface is not like this mom. No.
What's the mom in Scarface like?
She knows what her son is, and she does not accept it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. So I feel like this mom knew, but was just turning a blind eye. I don't even want to say she was in denial. Like, I got the impression that she fully knew what Tom was doing, but just wasn't acknowledging it because, like, he's the baby. Like you said, she didn't want to imagine that was the lifestyle that he was accepting, but there it is. And actually, as much as I found her really annoying. But as much as I found her annoying, I think she was so necessary for keeping some heart in the movie. Because otherwise, there was no sense of what was being fought for.
I was going to say, I mean, in the beginning of the movie when he's a kid and he's talking about stealing the roller skate and how the father walks, I think it's the father, isn't it?
Yeah,
that he walks out and he goes and gets the belt. I mean, that's something that we don't see nowadays. You don't take the belt out. I mean, that's like it's
a child abuse.
Child abuse.
Yeah.
And I think that was also what you're talking about, bringing the heart in with the mom. I think that was lacking in the beginning because you could see the look on the mother's face when he went and got that belt. And she was like, oh, I don't want to know what's going to happen. And he just Tom accepted the whips because he knew he was going to get it anyways.
But you also have to understand, too, back then, and like in the household, it was pretty much the man's way or the highway. It was never really like the woman ever had a voice, especially back in those times. It was always whatever the dad said, it happened.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I forgot about that early scene. Oh, yeah, definitely. I forgot to talk that it was the mom, too, the same character. Obviously it was, but such a disconnect that I ignored the first part of the movie.
I turned to Britt and said, do you think I would ever do that to like our son? She's like, no, of course not. I'm like, that's child abuse. I mean, it is. You don't know what kind of effects or like PTSD that put on him throughout his whole life of taking those beatings like that.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And I think
he put it on himself by doing those crimes.
But you would have to put in your head he probably had gotten beatings before he started doing crimes. I mean, they don't go into it, but you would think because it seemed like he was resenting his parents and resenting a good
because he wanted to be bad.
I wish if they would have set up a scene of why he decides to go into like his like life of crime as a kid, because it just starts off the movie and he's already doing crime. Like maybe if there had like a small scene of showing why he started going down that dark path, it might have like maybe helped his character a little bit more.
Definitely. I think one interpretation I read that I really liked is that Tom was just such a like physically weak person that he had to lean into the crime lifestyle just to gain authority and to gain power. And like that started when he was young, just constantly like being beaten essentially by his dad on an ongoing basis and like being physically weaker than the other kids and his friends, that just sort of put him into that frame of mind where like this is the way that I get people to respect me. Because I even like before I read that, I even had a couple points of the movie where I just thought like it was during the scene when he went to the bartender and was like dumping out all of his beer saying, no, you're going to buy my beer. I was just watching it thinking to myself, like, you're twice the size of James Cagney. Why are you putting up with this? And I think that's just like one of the really cool things about this movie and about that character is that any authority he has, he created for himself, which is really fascinating.
Definitely.
That's how a lot of crime characters are. Like if they have authority, it's because they create it on their own.
Yeah, fun. Okay, so we're hitting about the hour mark, so I want to play our game, which is going to be really fun. So this was inspired by all the funny gangster names that come up in all of these movies. So the game is called Name That Gangster. Well, not really Name That Gangster, but that's what the game is called. I am going to name a gangster character from a movie. Some of them will be actual characters from movies. Some of them will be funny names that I made up. You have to guess whether this is a real character or a fake character. So I encourage everyone to now get a piece of paper and write down real or fake. Let's do that. We'll go with real or fake on a piece of paper.
Oh, I wrote down true or false.
That works too.
True will be real and false will be fake.
Perfect. All right, here we go. And then bonus points if you can name the movie that they're actually from. Oh, I should get something to write with. Get here. Okay. Here we go. Everyone ready?
Yep.
Your first gangster, real or fake? Putty Nose.
Real.
Oh.
And he was from
Again, bonus points if we know the movie.
from the movie was from Republican.
Okay, Lauren. Says real.
You got to write bigger than that.
Yes, Real Public Enemy. You got it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't know we were writing down the. I thought we were gonna. I had the same thing.
I'll give you the point, Lauren. I know you knew that. We started off on an easy one because this should be fresh in everyone's brain.
The only reason why I remember that is I was watching the character intros and I'm like, man, that's a bizarre name. Like, that's really bizarre.
Yeah.
There was nothing outstanding about his nose.
Yeah, that's it. There was when they opened the
average
door,
nose.
The guy that said that Putty Nose flew the coop, he had a putty nose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they should have just switched around the cat stick.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I forgot to mention my other fun fact. Is, like, did anyone know that James Cagney was initially cast as Matt, then they switched them? Yes. But they switched them after they shot the opening with the kids, which is why, like, little Tom Powers looks like Edward Wood and little Matt looks like James Cagney.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Just like, yeah, fun. Okay, next. Tommy Gunn.
You got to write bigger than that.
No, I don't.
Nobody can see that.
Yes, I can.
We got one for fake.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not real.
Correct. I made him up, but I think it's a great name for a gangster. It should be an actual
Oh my
character.
God, it's from
Brilliant.
The Mask, right?
I think it's the
from-
name of a toy, actually.
From Home Alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but my Tommy Gun will. And no one can see it, but when I made the notes, his name is spelled Gun with two N's, so it's like a real last name. So very clever. Okay. Next, Little Caesar. Okay, we got one for real.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to make it so it's more visible.
Okay.
And I'm going to write down.
Or it's the restaurant and we're totally off.
Okay.
Real from Annie. That is a good guess. He is real. He's not from Annie. He is actually from a movie called Little Caesar,
Ah.
which I can't take seriously because I just imagine that it's about the pizza. So there we go. Okay.
Though there is a mention of a Little Caesar in Annie.
There is?
Yep.
When?
Some old geezer called Little Caesar. He's an uncle.
Oh, of course he is. Oh, I should have remembered Rooster from Annie. I could have put him on the list. I didn't, but I could have. So there we go. There is one from a musical. I'll give you that right now.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
keep an ear out. Next, Big Boy.
Can you repeat that?
Yep, Big Boy.
Oh, you can go with that one. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay, what we got? We got one real. Got one not real. Big Boy is in fact real. He is also from Little Caesar.
Good job.
He's from where?
Little Caesar.
We should have guessed.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is like the free space on the bingo card. Get ready. Muggsy. Okay, we got one for fake.
And I have
She's real in our heart.
real.
You got real? It was fake. Muggsy was made up for the great movie ride.
Oh.
She's real in
You
our
gotta
heart.
be a Muggsy.
Yeah,
I
she's
know,
real
because
to
you would
us.
think. You would think. And I actually, I Googled it for a solid, 5 minutes to try to find any movie with a Muggsy, and I don't think there is one. I know. I think the closest is Bugsy Malone. But it rhymes.
Did you know the differences between the Muggsy? So there's Muggsy with a Y who was a boy, and Muggsy with an I who was a girl. Cast members.
Yeah. I saw that. I also saw originally the cowboy I think was always a guy and Muggsy was always a girl, or maybe it was the other way around. I know originally one was always male, one was always female.
I never saw the cowboy until very recently, right before the ride actually closed. We never got that scene. I was always the Muggsy scene.
Yeah, I think the Muggsy scene was a lot more common. My understanding is that they only brought in the cowboy scene when it was like a super busy day, and then they had to run the ride at full capacity. And even then, I think, yeah, and I'm guessing it's because they set that building on fire, and that's probably more expensive than just having the robots having a shootout in the gangster scene. So there it is. Fun. Next, Breathless Mahoney.
I'd say real. That's just-
Okay, we got one for fake. Oh no, that's real. Okay,
Real.
one for
My
real.
finger was blocking in my bad.
Okay. Lauren.
Real
Lauren, you
Dick
got
Tracy.
2 points.
Yay!
Dick Tracy.
I love Dick Tracy.
I don't know how I knew that. I was just like, Lauren's gonna get this. Even when I was writing it, I was like, I'm throwing this one in for Lauren. I feel like he appreciates Dick Tracy.
Yep.
Yep. And I mean, you're not gonna get a bonus point for it, but you know who played Breathless?
It was Madonna.
It was Madonna singing Stephen Sondheim. What more could you want?
I know, exactly.
All right. Next, Benny the Bootlegger. Benny the Bootlegger.
I think.
Bootleg, I mean.
Okay, we got a fake.
Watch, it's real though.
I know. I'm so bad at this game.
Another fake. You're both right. That was fake.
Okay, yay.
It sounded so fake, but
Oh, yeah.
you never know.
Because it was alliteration. I was just like, well, bootlegging was a thing. What's a B name? Benny. Done. Benny the Bootlegger. There we go. Okay. The Copper Stomper.
You were quick on that. You know what movie that's from?
No, but I'm going to take a wild guess because it's a weird name.
Okay, we got one for real.
I just feel like it shouldn't be real.
No. Lauren, you're right. I made that one up too.
Ah,
If
yeah.
it rhymes or if there's alliteration, I probably made it up. That's, well, it's coming way too late. Here we go. Next. Okay, I know at least one of you is going to get this, and if you don't, I'll be judging a little bit. Jimmy 2 times. Jimmy 2 times. Again, if you tell us the movie, you get a bonus point. Okay, I'm not going to read it just in case. I don't want to influence Lauren's decision making.
I want to say I'm probably totally wrong.
Real Chicago. Lauren, you are correct. He is real, but our Paradise Falls is correct in knowing that he is from Goodfellas.
Oh,
He always says everything 2
Goodfellas.
times.
Yep. We've seen that movie way too many times.
More than 2 times?
More like 6 times or 10 times.
Brilliant. Next, Nails Nathan.
Oh, what am I talking about?
Okay. 1 vote for real.
Listen, really? Shows how much I didn't pay attention. Oh, really? But I remember the Buddy Nose guy. That name stood out more.
And you're both correct. He's from the Public Enemy. He's the one that the horse was killed because of. Here we go.
Yep.
Okay. Now I'm going to tally the points. And then the next round, the all or nothing round, you can decide how many points you want to wager.
Yeah.
Because we're the gambling types here at Teacup for One. Here we go. Our Paradise Falls, you have 13 points to wager. Lauren, you have
For sure.
0.
8, 11.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody's game. So Paradise Falls, how many points would you like to wager for this final round?
Do them all. All
We're
of them.
going all.
All? Okay.
Going all in.
All in. Nice. Castles, Capes, Clones.
Going big or go home.
Okay, that's what I like to hear. Now, this one is a little bit different. I'm going to name a collection of characters, all from the same movie, and you have to tell me what movie they're from. This might be kind of a trick question.
Oh my god.
Okay, here we go. Snuffy, Al, Leo, Little Mo with the gimpy leg, Cheeks, Boney Bob, and Cliff.
Yep.
Lauren, would you have known?
Yeah, I was like, Little Mo with the stumpy leg. I'm like, okay, Home Alone. I think it's Home Alone, but I wasn't quite sure.
Now, are we both officially locking in Home Alone as our final answer?
But wait a minute though. He said it's a trick question. It was featured in Home Alone, but what's the real movie?
Oh.
You said it's a trick question, right? So it's not. It can't be Home Alone.
Well, I mean, it was kind of a trick question because it was from like a movie within a movie, but it's also there's multiple layers to this being a trick question. There's a couple answers I'll accept as correct.
Well, technically, it's Home Alone.
No, it's the first one.
Because he's lost in New York.
Yeah, Lost in New York. It says that scene, that line's not in Lost in New York. That's in the first one. But what is that movie that he's watching? It says it in the title of Home Alone. I think when he puts the VHS in, it says the title of it, I think. For those of you who know what a VHS is.
Oh my god.
I don't know what that
I
movie
have
is.
no idea.
Just stick with Home Alone. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, I will accept Home Alone from both of you. So our Paradise Falls won by 4 points because everything was double.
Yay!
A movie within Home Alone, within the Home Alone verse, is called Angels with Dirty Faces.
That's it. Yes, you're right.
Which is a takeoff on, I can't remember what the actual movie is called. It's like Angels with Unclean Hands or something. It's very much a direct parody, which I think is hilarious.
That is funny.
Brilliant. All right, congratulations, our Paradise Falls. You won. You don't get anything, but good job. You did.
That's cool. Hey, winning is winning.
And actually, I think, Lauren, have you won every round prior to this? Did they break your winning streak?
They broke my winning streak, yes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, not sorry.
It's okay.
No,
That's the
I trust Lauren
magic
will
of
claim his
Disney.
crown back. Lauren will claim his crown back. On when are you back, Lauren? Is it Alien Week?
Yeah, I think it's Alien.
You'll claim it back for Alien Week. I have no doubt. Brilliant. All right, friends. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just before we wrap things up, let's just do a quick go around and tell us what we can look forward to seeing on your channel in the next coming weeks, months, anything that you're looking forward to putting out there for the world. We'll start with Paradise Falls.
We have coming up next week. We just did our March trip, our first day last week. Next week, we're going to be having our second day. We're going to Animal Kingdom. And do we have anything else coming up besides our March trip?
Cast member spotlight.
Oh, yes. We have a new series coming up. It's going to be Cast Member Spotlight, we're calling it. And we're going to have actually our Great Movie Ride friends on there as our first cast members that we interviewed. So we're really looking forward to that.
We asked them cool questions and anything that we could ask them without getting them in trouble. So pretty cool. We're really excited for it.
Oh, I'm so excited for that. I love hearing cast member stories, especially from Great Movie Ride. I love it.
Mhm.
Fun. And Lauren, how about you?
Yeah, for the next month, it's going to be same old, like the hauls and unboxing and things like that. But then on the 7th and 8th of June, I finally get to go back home, back to Disneyland. And
That's awesome.
I'm going in time for Avengers Camp. It's at California Adventure. So
I'm so jealous.
Yeah,
I'm
jealous.
so excited.
So you're going to record everything for us, right? And put it all up on your channel?
Yep.
Amazing. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Fun. And well, I'm not going to a Disney park anytime soon. So I'm just going to keep making videos about attractions that don't exist anymore.
And we love it.
Oh, and I love you. All right, everyone. So let's do the classic live stream thing where we are all going to do our sign-offs to sign us on off, basically. Lauren, you go first.
All right. Well, you can reach us on Twitter at CCC Disney Uni, on Instagram at Castles, Capes, and Clones. You can reach me personally on Twitter at LowJav, on Instagram at Lauren Javier. Visit our website at www.castlecakeclones, and we will see you later.
And Our Paradise Falls, sign us off.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at our.paradise.falls, Facebook, Our Paradise Falls, our YouTube channel, Our Paradise Falls, and good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. And of course, everyone, you're watching this on my channel, so if you're not subscribed, please consider it. I think I'm all right. Again, you can find me here on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at YipChuck, YIPCHUCK. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and this has been the Teacup for One. Okay.